Hi guys, so we were having some issues with the internet, so I apologize for the delay for this upload. We are going to need to do the blueprint for the simple gear assembly, and that is the one from before we went on break. Then we have an additional blueprint. It's going to be on both of these. I'll do a time stamp or try to for whatever you can click on YouTube for you to go to that specific one. The drawings are very similar, which is why I'm combining these two together. So the first one we're going to do is the basic gear assembly. We need to set up our blueprint. It's the same as before, where we need to put in a border and put our labels. My rule of thumb for me personally, don't have to follow mine exactly, but I always have the holes at the top. It's just easier to view when it's in a binder. Let's go ahead and do our border. And don't forget about proper ruler handling. My handle's loose down on this bottom part, so it kind of went over. That's all right. Just make sure whenever you do your inking that you erase that. Okay, so here to here. There we go. So after we get our grid, we then need to divide it into an additional 4 miniature grids. So remember, this is your drawing area. There we go. Now for this drawing area, remember these have specific placements. You have your top view, 3D view, front view, and then your right view. As a reminder, whenever you write, you need to make sure that you're writing all capital letters. Our title for this one is going to be Simple Gear Train Assembly. Just like that. Some hacks for you for whenever we're drawing these. You're going to need a quarter and another coin that is going to be smaller. I use a quarter and a dime for my circles. All right, so if you don't have any coins around you, you can freehand your circles. You can use things like bottle caps, whatever you have that's circular, you can use. That's why I like to keep bottle caps and things like that for whenever I do my blueprints, just so I have something that will be neater and cleaner. I'm going to switch over to a pencil. I believe you should be able to see it. That way I'm able to erase in case I mess up. And then we'll ink it over once we're done. You should always use a pencil until you have finalized your blueprint. Then you can go over it with your pen. So when we draw this gear train, anytime I start with the blueprint, I always start with the front view. And then I'll do the top and then the right. And then the 3D view is going to be just a replication of the front view. Now when you go later on with more advanced blueprints, you may need to pick a different angle to draw 3D, but for our gear assemblies, the front view turned 3D is just fine. All right, so then we do need to, before we actually really get into this, we need to make sure we put our other labels in. So we need to put our top at the top of the paper for orientation, and then we also need to write down here, not drawn to scale. By putting that here, that tells everybody this is just a reference, and the measurements on here are not all the same. But the way I draw these is that they all look the same. but it just doesn't translate to real life from the paper. Like 1 square doesn't equal an inch or something like that. All right, to get us started, I always go up by 2 and in by 2. Let's go ahead and we'll zoom in on that front view so you can see what I'm doing. So in 2, up by 2, in 2, up by 2. Connect your dots. And remember to draw lightly. I'm drawing darker so you can see what I'm doing. But you want to do it lightly so that you can erase. All right, then we're going to go up in by 2 and we're going to go up by 5. So why am I doing it this way? I'm doing it this way specifically because when we look at our build plate, you'll notice that it is the flat plate that we use is 5 high, 5 holes high. So in this way, we kind of sort of have it within a sort of scale. But remember, it's not drawn to scale. So if you don't want to make it 5 high, that is perfectly fine. It's just something that seems to work out for me. Now, when we drew our basic gear assembly, we did just draw a line straight across. We're going to wait for that because we need to actually put our gears in. So I'm going to line it up and go above here. We're going to draw in our larger gear. Like that. And then go to here and use our smaller gear. Go to the center of the gear and draw a little circle for where the axle comes through. There we go. Now you can do something a little extra. You can put the little gears in, little teeth. This reminds me for my landscape drawings of evergreen bushes, shrubs, and trees. Evergreens are represented by circles with the sharp needle points because of their needles, while deciduous is rounded like clouds. It's just something that helps me, that reminds me of that. Now we are going to draw this line across. This is solid, but this is going to turn into a dashed line whenever it's behind the gears, and then this way. What this dashed line represents is that this part of the build is behind these gears. So these gears are to the front. If this was a solid line, then these gears would be behind that. So this is why it's important for you to use a pencil. Sometimes, like, I'll forget that it needs to be a dashed line. So that's why I always use a pencil, because then I can just go in and erase those lines. So this is the front view. This is everything that's on the basic gear assembly train. You have your one gear here and here, and then they spin just like this. Now when we do an idler gear, there's actually going to be, we'll use a bottle cap right now, there'll be another gear on this side like this. So let's go ahead and do our let's go ahead and just do the right side view. Now when we go with this, you'll notice I'm going to draw some guidelines. When we draw these blueprints, if you remember from design and modeling, everything needs to line up. So I'm just drawing some guidelines across, straight across, very lightly. You can see those, but I will be erasing that once we get done with the build. But this gives us a guideline as to how tall to make it, and we do the same thing on this side when we do our top view for the width. So some of you guys might see Leo. He is helping me with my drawings. He is making sure to help. He is really helping. So if you guys see a paw or anything, that is from Leo helping. He always helps me in anything I do drawing and art-wise. Fun fact, that is where he got his name from. It was from Leonardo da Vinci, because when he was a kitten, he always helped. All right, so let's go ahead and do our right side view. So we're going to go in by 8. We'll actually make it 6. In by 6, up by 2. And same thing, go across by 5, it should fit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there's our 6 and 6. Darken your line right here. Okay. And then we want to count how many squares we have because it is going to be 4 wide. It goes across the build plate by 4 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 2. Well, actually, it is 5. It is 5 squares. So we're going to go in by 2, in by 2. And then we're going to draw our line straight up until we hit that guideline that we drew in. All right, so that is the height of the board. Now we do have the gear on this side, so we need to bring it out by just a quarter of a square is what I do. And we will draw that in like that. And I'll put my little dashes in to show that that is a gear. And we do have the spacers on the inside. These are what are holding this together, so I will draw those in as well, just to show that we have something holding that together. Then in the center of the gear, we're going to draw our little locking nut on the outside and draw our axle straight out. Just like that, and then we have a handle. All right, just like that. So this is your right side view. So what we can see from this view in comparison to this one shows that there's 2 gears. This one shows us that this is how generally how wide it is, and that we have our spacers here, our metal spacers, that we have an axle that goes through with one of those having a handle on the end of it. So every view that we do actually shows us some form of information about the build, and that's why we draw these. I'm going to draw my guideline straight up, again using my front view as reference. Okay, so we want a little crooked there. There we go. So these are our guidelines. That means we're not going to go any wider than that for our top view. And the top view is literally from above, like you're seeing my blueprint from above. We're going to go down here. I'm going to go up by 2, connect my lines here like this. Go up, I'm going to go down by 2, do the same thing. This is the build plate. The build plate's very wide. All right, and you're going to connect these 2 together, darken that line if you haven't already. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase my guidelines for this. That doesn't confuse me. There we go. And now we're going to draw in our piece that is smaller than this. We're going to go in by 2, and then we are up by 2. Oops, I misspoke. We're going to go in by 2, and then you're going to go up by 5. If you remember on our right side view, we said they're 5 apart. So same thing. So we go in by 2, and then you're draw up by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw your line straight down. Just like this. And then same thing here, you're going to replicate it up to here. And then connect your lines. All right, so what this is, it kind of looks like a floppy disk now, or like the save icon on your computers. But for now, what we need to do is we need to have those 2 gears. So we have the larger one and the smaller one up here. And we want to line those up as well. So same thing. We're going to draw our guidelines up very lightly. This. Right, that way we know that's how wide it's going to be. I'm going to turn my paper to the side so that it's easier for me. You're allowed to move your blueprint to help you with your actual drawing, okay? So just like we did down on the right side view, we're only going to make it about a quarter wide. So mark it here. Line the edge of the ruler with the edge of the paper so that it's nice and straight. You'll always have a straight line. I'm going to draw right across like this. So I went about halfway instead of a quarter. Let's try that again. The thickness of your lead or your pen that you're using will impact how you do this. There we go. There we go. And we're going to draw our line straight down like this. And we'll draw our line here like this. We are going to put in our locking nut in the center. To be like this. You're going to draw your axle straight out. Right. Locking nut on the side. And then this one, we'll draw the handle. Just like that. And then we have our top view. Now you're going to want to erase your guidelines that you had that are extra. So it's nice and clean. I'm doing the same thing across the other. And then we'll have a nice clean blueprint. Pull this up. There we go. And we do need to do the 3D view. So what we'll do is we're going to replicate this just like the front view. Up here is a 3D view. So for your reference, you can reference your front side view. And the only difference is I'm going to go in by 2, of course, here. But when I get to here, I'm going to go in by 4 instead. So it's going to be a little shorter than the other, which is fine. 3D view, that's fine. Because the reason why is that I'm having to deal with the 3D, and just for my space, that's what works the best for me. So we're going to go in by 2, up by 5. You're going to wait to draw your gears in like before. And we're going to go in by 2 on this side. Okay, just like that. And we're going to draw in our gears again. All right, little circles. Now we can draw our lines in here at the top, just like before, solid until you hit those gears, dashed line, then solid. So right now, this is just your front side view. You don't have any 3D aspect at all. Whenever I do my 3D, especially when it's not drawn to scale, what I do is I'll just divide my square into half. And I am drawing If you notice, we made it 5, so it should be 2.5 squares. Should be where it stops. So 2.5, just like that. Do the same thing on this side. 2.5, right? So when we connect these, theoretically, they will be level. Now, this is behind, so it is a dashed line until you get to here. Well, leave that undone here. We got to draw one more line. You're going to go in by, they're going to go in by 2. So 1, 2, right here. Same thing here, in by 2, 1, 2, right here. And that is where we're going to draw up by 5. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Connect these here like this. If it's easier to go ahead and just do your 2.5 here like this, and then just connect your lines this way. Right, so now we can see where it is. Well, that's still solid, so you're fine. Okay, just like that. And back here, we're going to connect our lines. Like this. Then we have our 3D view. I'm going to put our teeth on here. Now, when you do the circle, it does come out at an angle. So you bring it out like this till it hits here. And then you're going to bring it back in as a solid line. So same thing on this one. Bring it out here like this. And then do that. And then when we do our teeth, they're in the middle of that space. Just like that. And there we have our 3D view. And maybe thinking, well, what about our spacers? We do need to put those in there. So again, dashed line. Spacers here, dash. This one doesn't have to be a dashed line because it is on the outside. And there we go. So when you get done with this, you are going to want to ink this. So you're going to go right back over top of all of your pencil and use your Sharpie or a pen. If you're using a gel-based pen, make sure that you wait till it dries before you erase. Otherwise, it'll smear it all over the place. And once you get done, then you'll be able to erase. So if I were to do that with the right side view, show you how I ink it. So I go right back over top of my lines like this. And the type of pen that I'm using is a Toiletry from, it's on Amazon, but it is a permanent marker, but it's a super fine point. And I use a permanent marker so that the ink doesn't run. If it were to get wet, use a regular pen, that's fine. Just make sure that your blueprint doesn't get wet. So I have inked everything on this. I believe we'll figure it out once we get done. It is dry. So we just go over it with a eraser. And then we erase all that pencil away. And then you're left with a nice clean line. So altogether, this should be what your blueprint looks like. When you're done, make sure you sign it. All right, so it's going to be your own signature, and you sign and date it so that no one else can steal your work. So if you have any questions, you can comment on the material or the assignment, but you do need to make your own blueprints and upload those to Google Classroom. They are a grade. And then there'll be another one that's for the idler gear assembly. I know I said I was going to combine the videos, but we are at 25 minutes for this video, so I'll upload these separately from this. All right, so thank you guys, and if you have any questions, just make sure that you ask me.